I have some great news. The Strong Men of Value Academy applications are open. So from the 10th of June until the 27th of June, we are taking new applications for members like you to join our Strong Men of Value Academy. Who's it for? It's for men who have an understanding of what they want from their life and they need accountability, tips, tools, and tricks to increase your productivity to achieve the goals that you're working towards. We all know that goals are milestones to creating the life that you want to live. So if you are ready to be surrounded by some awesome like-minded men, meet weekly to be held accountable towards the goal that you want, please apply and you'll receive a phone call from me directly. If you're wondering if this is still the right fit for you, what I would recommend, if you don't have a life's vision and something that you're working towards creating, go check out our self-discovery program first. That will help you build out your life's vision, get a huge list of goals that you know you need to tick off in order to build that life, and then the Academy will be a better fit for you. I look forward to reading your applications, and once again, thank you for supporting the podcast.
Welcome to Share.
Steve, thanks for having me on, mate.
It's awesome to catch up with you. It was interesting. Last year, I was on a soul degree retreat, and Greg Scheinman, the midlife male, he says to me, "Do you know Lachlan Stuart? He's from your hometown." And I said, I don't think so. And now I'm back in Brisbane. You're in America, and we catch up for a chat.
I know. It's funny how it works like that. The amount of times that's happened, I'm like, I've just left that place, but let's link up online. But that's the beauty of the internet, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. And, we obviously connect with content and, we can kind of spread that impact throughout the world, no matter where you are. And obviously for you, you built a business and built kind of a movement that allows you to do it from wherever you want. So I'm pretty envious on that.
Yeah, I think, as we we're probably just saying offline as well, it is a lot of perception. There's, from the social media side of things, it always looks like things are going swimmingly and I'm having the most amazing time. But there are a lot of moments where I'm pulling my hair out and thinking, what the hell am I going to do next? But, I think that's what you and I and lots of other people out there is we're just out here having a crack, giving it our best shot to chase the goals that we've set for ourselves. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And I love breaking those perceptions and kind of breaking that facade. And part of this podcast is kind of digging into people's lives and their stories because, I know when I was in real estate, people would, kind of go, "Oh God, you're so successful. You're so lucky. You've got a great family and everything like that. And you're just such a good father." And I remember posting one day, like I'd always be like, I go through the same challenges everyone else does. We're all just trying to keep it together. We're all trying to do our best. And, but it's interesting how perception, so that's what, for me, I kind of show a lot more vulnerability and discuss a lot more things online over the last few years because it kind of gives people a bit of a taste of, oh, okay. Oh, he is normal.
And that's, I wish, having heard you just say that, Steve, I'm like, I wish I had a Steve in my life 10 years ago who was successful and doing really well and on the outside looked like he had it all together, but then would be honest about what's actually going on, because that's what wrecked me. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are experiencing the exact same thing. We feel so alone in our thoughts. We feel so alone in our problems. But now we have people like yourself or myself with platforms or podcasts and even just men in their own communities who are starting to really share more of what's really going on. And a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think a lot more men are stoked to have access to real men speaking about real problems.
Yeah. I recently turned 40 and I did a 40 things I've learned at 40. And it's interesting. I've had a number of men reach out to me and say, "Oh, I loved this point," or "I've got to travel more. Actually, it makes me think I've got to put a hike in." Actually, I love that point on never stop dating your wife. So all these different things and sharing that stuff, it just empowers, it empowers other people to go, "Oh, wow." And obviously when you think of change, a lot of the time people get overwhelmed with change. But I always say, just plant that seed, just do that one thing, just make that one step forward. that will just get you a little bit closer to where you want to be, the type of person you want to be, the type of life you want to live.
Exactly. And that one step is what puts you in the position to build a little bit of stability. If you're someone who doesn't necessarily like rapid change or extreme change, find what you're comfortable with and move in that direction. I think everyone here, Tony Robbins, I assume Tony Robbins claimed the quote, it seems to be everywhere, but progress equals happiness. We all want to feel like we're making some degree of progress, yet progress requires us to grow. It requires us to be in a position which is uncomfortable. And because of that, a lot of people tend to avoid that. I know I was guilty of that for a long time, and I still am in certain moments and instances. But when I think about it a little bit or break it down, I'm like, okay, well, what's the one step that I could take that I do feel would be moving me in the right direction and I'm comfortable with? And if I need to sit here and sort of suss out the area a little bit to get a bit more familiar with it or understand it a little bit more, that's completely okay. But once I do that, then what's that next step as well on top of that, layer by layer, or step by step?
Yeah. And sometimes you've got to know, and sometimes you don't know, but sorry. Sometimes right. Sometimes you've kind of got to jump. Sometimes you've got to look at it and go, and one of my 40 things was if you're thinking whether it's the time to jump, like take that next step, because then you'll be like, oh, okay, that wasn't as bad.
I've made some progress. Wow, I'm actually capable of more than I first thought, and that in itself is a surreal feeling. I don't know about you, Steve, but I spend a lot of my younger years beating myself up because I wasn't taking the risks. Deep down, I felt like I had the ability to achieve, I guess, outcomes or things that I saw a lot of other people achieving, yet I still wasn't taking that risk. And that used to really frustrate me. But when I learned that the only person who could make the change or who could do the thing that was required of me in order to, create a different outcome, that's when I started going, okay, well, let's take that leap. And the worst, obviously there's some things you can't come back from. So I want to put context around that. But if you do enough due diligence to go, okay, what's the worst case scenario here? And let's say, for example, it is in joining a new gym. The worst case scenario of joining a new gym is you don't like the people, maybe the classes suck, and you've, signed up for a month or whatever, you lose that money. That's not a really, at the end of the day, bad outcome to get some feedback around, okay, I didn't like this about that particular gym. Next time I go looking for my gym, I just want to keep that in mind. I want to suss out what's the culture like. Do they have community events, for example? And I think the cost, well, there is no real cost. It's an investment in feedback, which then helps you redirect to, figuring out what that next thing is for you.
And it's a good thing as well, because when you move towards things, I've worked out that sometimes we can have in our head that we want to achieve things, we want to do things. And then sometimes you move towards it and you go, actually, I don't think I want to do this. But if you don't move towards it, you don't know that, right? So then you just have this excuse. You have to keep coming up with these reasons why you're not doing it or why you can't do it. But if you move towards it, it's like, oh, actually, I'm not feeling this anymore. I'm going to move towards something else.
Exactly right. And too many dudes just feel like every decision is set in stone. Right? As to probably touch on what I said a moment ago, there are only probably a couple of, less than a handful of things that you can't undo. Most other things you pivot from, as you said, once you've got the feedback. But so many people that I speak to that are feeling lost or they're lacking direction, they're the people that just aren't embracing the new experiences and reflecting on the impact of those experiences, right? That's what we call self-discovery. You can't find out more about what you like, what you don't like, the people that you want to surround yourself with, the people that you want to remove from your life, if you're constantly having more of the same. It's one of those echo chambers, and that's why I think it's so important to, even the things that I believe at the moment, I'm always questioning, I'm always having conversations with people who maybe believe differently, because I want to understand their point of view and I want to either solidify my own belief or potentially change my belief, because at the end of the day, my goal is to live the best possible life. And how I am living right now is awesome, but I do believe it can get better, and people are experts in things that I'm currently not, and I want to source that information from the people who are living that right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're obviously going to get into a few things. We've already got into a few things in this chat so far.
Yeah, we started hot, didn't we? We went out.
We did. But that's good. That's good. It sets the tone for the chat today. Always, as I always do, I wanted to start by asking, who is Lachie Stuart?
Let's take a quick break.
Are you tired of waking up with a dry mouth, feeling sluggish? I was too, until I discovered the power of mouth taping. I read a book called Breathe, and it opened my eyes to how I could get a better sleep. So I started taping my mouth, and the results were astounding. Not only did I wake up feeling refreshed, but the data on my Whoop suggested I was getting more REM and more deep sleep, which led to me feeling better every morning. But I wanted a better solution, not just sticky tape, something that was effective and comfortable. That is why I co-founded Recover Right with a few friends. We are dedicated to helping Australians get fast and easy access to mouth tape and nose tape so you can breathe better, sleep better, and recover right. Use the discount code TMTCP for 10% off at the checkout. Sleep better with Recover Right. Lachie Stuart is a husband, an athlete, and a man who is showing up to be his best every single day. How I've gotten here is through rock bottom moments, and rock bottom is different for everyone. But I use that moment to propel myself forward. I spent a long time sitting down in the muddy water of self-pity and disgust, and I recognized there was only one of two ways I could stay there in the sewage, and I didn't really like that. So the next option was to work out what I wanted from my life, and that required radical responsibility and a lot of introspective thinking and acknowledgement around parts and aspects of myself that I didn't enjoy. And because I was willing to take or step up to the plate with that, I've turned into a man that I'm truly proud of, someone that if I looked at myself in the mirror, I would follow myself. I practice what I preach, and I am continually trying to put my best foot forward every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you talk about rock bottom and I can, going through what I've gone through over the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's interesting because rock bottom, I call it, I was just at a men's retreat in America, and I call it ground zero. You can kind of go back to that, and you can actually almost feel those moments when you had really hit rock bottom. Can you talk to me a little bit about, what was the catalyst for change and what were some of those moments?
I had a number of wake-up calls over the years, Steve, and I wasn't ready to listen. I was still, deflecting responsibility. There was moments when I got caught out cheating. I was taking drugs. I was lying. I was manipulating. I'd been dropped from multiple sporting teams. And I always seemed to find someone else that I could blame for that. And because of that, I could keep going, that's not my problem just yet. Let's move on. And what happened in 2012, I moved to France to play rugby. And I was like, this is a fresh start. This is complete success. Everyone back home, my ex-girlfriend who just dumped me is going to regret dumping me. And now I've got, I'm living abroad. I'm living the dream. This is my idea of success. And what I experienced, a couple of months into living in France was all the same problems started arising in a whole new country. And I was now removed from my support network. So it was a really terrible time to be stuck in your own head where you're insecure, you're still jealous about your ex-girlfriend back home, you're playing crap football, you're drinking a lot. It was just this toxic cycle. I ended up finding my way back to Australia and with no purpose. So up until that point, all I'd ever wanted to be and all I ever believed that I could excel in was sport. I wanted to be a professional athlete, and I was a really great athlete. But I'd never truly committed myself because things came naturally. I was one of those guys who was gifted. And I did work hard, but I think when I got the opportunity to get paid for it, I didn't, I took that for granted. And when I got home, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I valued. And I was scared to stand out because I wasn't good at anything. So I fit right in, and the environment that I was fitting in with, drank a lot, partied a lot, and I found myself in that position. And as someone who'd always wanted to be the best, was driven by or got their validation by being the best, I was like, all right, I can be the best partier. And I know a lot of people, especially blokes, can resonate with that. They want to be that top guy. And I found myself in a situation which when I reflect on it, I felt disgusted. And it was the first time in my post-school life, I would say, where I had a long, hard look at myself and I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. And what I mean by that is I went to a great school. I had a private education on a sports scholarship. I have an incredible family and I had every opportunity. Yet I had managed to stuff it up time and time again. And I remember sitting there in that moment being like, things have got to change. I don't know what that is or what that looks like, but I just need to get away from it. And fast forward, a 3-month period, that's just, I can't really remember what the time frame was, but roughly about 3 months, I met my now wife. And in that moment, it was like a lifeline. I knew that I was about to get into a relationship with someone who didn't have common friends, which meant I could reinvent myself. And that sounds weird saying that out loud. Why would you want to reinvent yourself? But I had reinvented myself when I went to a rugby school. Prior to rugby, I was a national level runner, and I love skateboarding. But because I got bullied at that school in grade 8 for being a skinny little skater boy, I made myself and I reinvented myself into a football player. So I now had the opportunity to do that again, but I wanted to do it properly this time. And a guy that I'd been playing rugby with, which is weird that it came out of that same social group, gave me a book, and the book was the 4 Agreements. The only reason, Steve, why I read that book, because I wasn't interested in reading, was I respected who he was as an individual, and he was quite successful in business. And once I read that, it challenged so many beliefs that I had. It was like, be impeccable with your word. I was not doing that. Don't assume. I was assuming everything. I was living in a really uncomfortable environment or headspace, sorry. And after that, I was like, cool. Well, I don't necessarily know what my next chapter looks like, but I just know I don't want to fuck up my relationship. Am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to mess up my relationship. And so in order for me to become a better man, I knew that the lying had to stop. I knew that there could be no cheating and manipulation. And when I started reading more, I started learning about these things. Why am I so jealous? Why am I so insecure? And then, as you start going down that pathway, you can start acknowledging a few things and doing a bit of work on that. But that made me a better man. And every, solution or problem that I solved provided a new problem. I created a new problem. It's like, okay, that's now ticked, but here's more work, Lockie. Are you prepared to continue doing it? And I dug myself out of rock bottom. I got so passionate and so excited that I had gone from essentially being someone that I would describe as a stain on society. And that feels terrible to say that about myself, but that's how I would view myself back then, into a man that I'm completely proud of. And that rock bottom and the lessons that I learned and where it has taken me since then, purely because I decided that I just didn't want to mess up my relationship and gave myself created an idea of what not messing that up would look like, then enabled me to learn skills and build standards in order to be that version of myself. And then obviously that's had a ripple effect, Steve, into my business life, into my relationships with friends and family, and so many other things.
So obviously you had to leave some stuff behind. You obviously gained a lot. Talk to me about some of the courage it took and some of the things you had to drop to move forward into the kind of light, I suppose.
I had to drop some friendships for a while. In hindsight, I don't believe I needed to do that, but in the moment, I think that was what I really needed, because I was so vulnerable and so easily influenced that any opportunity to party, the rubber arm would get twisted, and I was back doing things that I wanted to get away from. So how I handled that, I wouldn't handle now, but I would sort of distance myself until I became confident and had really established some new habits to be a better version of myself. And the other things was I had to leave behind the rugby lifestyle. I love footy, I love sport, but the association that I had with rugby and with drinking and partying and women, it wasn't going to change if I continued playing rugby. And it's nothing against the sport in itself. It's just the culture that I found myself in and how I had now connected patterns and habits of behavior. You'd finish a game, you'd go up to the clubhouse, you'd drink a few beers, and you'd be like, feel pretty good. Let's go out tonight and let's see what's happening on the town. And I don't believe I would have been able to break that habit had I stayed in the sport. So one of the biggest sacrifices I made at the time was retiring at 23. You know, my whole identity up until that point had been a professional footy player and wanted to pursue that dream. So to walk away from that really stripped me back. But at the same time, Steve, it afforded me the opportunity to really build on that foundation that I said. It's like, who do I want to be from here on out? And I had never really spent too much time around successful business people or even people who spoke openly around what a healthy, intimate relationship was. And so as I started networking with more of those people, I was like, man, maybe I could try my hand in business and maybe I can be a world-class husband at the same time. What does that look like? And what am I not prepared to sacrifice in order to achieve that? Because I had seen lots of people, and once again, I understand generations do things differently, so it's not having a go at any generation, but it's building upon it. Is in order to support your family like my dad did, I wanted to work out how I could achieve that without sacrificing my health, without sacrificing my relationships with my mates or my wife or potential future children's, and how I could build income in a way that would allow me to have more time at home. And they were all questions that I started asking myself and started seeking out, answers for, because I do believe it's possible. And there's a lot of people who are proving that now. And I'm leading the way in doing that as well.
Yeah. Can I ask, Lockie, do you ever think about you now, the evolved man, the man that's kind of a lot further ahead, past his partying days, drinking, the girls? If you were the person you are today back then, do you think that would have had a change on your sporting career?
Definitely. I'm a much better athlete. I'm fitter, healthier, stronger. My mindset is so much better. I often joke about it with my mates now. I'm like, if I was playing rugby now with knowing what I know, I would be dangerous. Yet one thing, it's interesting, and I'll think this out loud because I haven't actually thought about it too much. I was just having a conversation on Twitter with someone this morning around it. There's a lot of 19, 20, 21-year-olds who are saying, I don't party, I don't drink, I don't do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, that's awesome. And I used to say, imagine if I was doing this at 21 or 19 or whatever age it may be. But then the other part of me thinks, isn't like that period of our life where we really don't have too many responsibilities. Yes, we have an abundance of what we can achieve, but that time where we don't have responsibilities is also a beautiful time to try things and make mistakes and learn more about what we do and don't like, because I've also seen athletes who have committed everything and then once they finish their career, they just party like animals, and they do have more to lose at that point because they've got their brand or they maybe have a family and things really fall apart. So it's interesting to think about that. Yes, I believe I would be a better athlete and my mindset was better and I could have capitalized on it a lot more, but I do not for 1 second regret anything that happened, because those experiences have now enabled me to teach other people, to learn a lot about myself, to have experienced that side, to go, look, I'm not even envious of people who are still out partying and doing all of those sorts of things. That doesn't interest me at all because I have experienced it. But had I not experienced it, Steve, it would be like anyone who hasn't experienced anything. You've always got that, but what if? And having a what if can, have you, I guess, straying from where you want to be focused on. So it's interesting to think about. And I do think about that a lot for these young kids who are maybe too impatient around making their first million or whatever they want to do, and missing out on the opportunities that they have in front of them to actually live and experience that time of their life.
Yeah. So, Lockie, your journey led you to found the Man That Can project.
It did indeed. And it was people ask, how did you become a coach? If you knew me in grade 12 or at any point in school, Steve, maths was my strong subject in PE, not English or communication. My mum would always say to me, Lockie, stop mumbling. I'd always be like talking into my voice because of a lack of self-esteem. Now you can't shut me up. But what happened through those years where I was reading and I was learning a lot about myself and I was overcoming a lot of my own mental demons was I started using Instagram to document that. I learned from Jim Rohn, and I listened to Jim Rohn all the time. He's one of the OGs, but there's 3 treasures that you leave behind. It's your bookshelf, so people can understand what made you think, act, and behave the way you did. Your photo album, so they can see the chapters of your life. And the diaries. It's like, what were you actually thinking about? What were you writing about? And when I read that, I was like, wow. So you're telling me with technology the way it is that one day my children or, I can look back on my life and just check out Instagram posts or a YouTube channel or a blog. That is awesome. And so I started documenting that. I wanted to talk about the things that I was learning and I was experiencing. And as a result of that, Steve, I had people start following that. And because I was talking about the shit that I was going through, as we spoke about to kick off the conversation, I wasn't going to hide any of the stuff that I'd gone through or the people that I'd hurt or the things that I was learning because I knew that I wasn't alone. And I also wanted to get the baggage off my back. When I started speaking openly about my depression and suicidal ideation and, the way that I'd mistreated people, I felt better because I wasn't ashamed of that anymore. And people were resonating with that. And I still remember when I was in Austria, one day I was actually walking to the pub to have a palmy and a pint. And I continued to get messages from blokes and from ladies being like, oh, maybe you should talk to my partner. Or a bloke said, hey, I can't remember the specific question, but he asked me something that I was like, I'm getting enough of these questions that I'd rather just like solve this in a group format than doing it one-to-one. And I was like, when I get back to Brisbane, I'm creating a men's group. I didn't have any idea what it is or how it would work. I just remember putting it up on Instagram, creating an Eventbrite for it, and away we went. And that first event, I literally wrote like an 8-page introduction on myself and why this was happening. Got in there. So we had 8 people rock up. And as soon as I walked in, I was like, this isn't what it's for. So I didn't actually ever read that. And I just made it up on the fly. I was like, okay, well, what brought you guys here? Maybe what's a pain point or something like that. And it ended up being this incredible waterfall effect. The first person was a bit stiff and rigid, and that was me, guilty. But the first person who truly opened up, just opened up a cascade for everyone else to have permission to speak about what was going on. And this blew my mind, Steve, because I saw men from all walks of life. I think on the first one, we had a lawyer, we had a couple of chippy, like builders, PT, and someone in tech, for example. Anyway, the fact that they connected so well, I was like, this is incredible. Like, it doesn't matter where you are from in life, we can connect through story and through sharing our challenges. And the groups continued to grow. We got to about 30 people and they'd run for about 2.5 hours and like everyone was engaged. But what I started noticing was people kept showing up and talking about the same problems. Right? It's awesome to talk about your problems, but it's also very important to have that next step, which is to figure out what you're going to do to solve that problem. And that's when I started going, okay, well, this is working well. There's obviously a demand for it, but what's the next thing I can do to stop men continuing to show up with the same problem, but have them showing up, having solved that and improved their quality of life? And we, put together a workshop. We started running workshops. The podcast was obviously a big part of that for my own communication and to interview and learn from other people. And we've done all these things over the years, and constantly in the back of my mind, being fully transparent, Steve, I've always had an idea that the business had to be able to serve my personal needs in regards of having a flexible lifestyle because my wife travels a lot. We travel a lot. I wanted to be in a position, should we have children, that I can be a stay-at-home dad, should I want to do that at that point in time. And I've always had that in the back of my head for the last 10 years, and that's why I'm in the position I'm in. But the goal has always been, how do I help the version of myself who didn't have access to people who had the results that I want, that could tell me not only what it took to be successful, but the shit that was going on behind the scenes, the tension in the relationships, the self-doubt, the missed soccer games watching their son, like the real stuff that we all stress about but never talk about. And that's where we are today.
We all can feel alone at times, and sharing online, whether it's social media, whether it's YouTube, whether it's in a podcast, and it was the basis of starting Share Podcast, because I thought, for me, over years, there's so many people that have inspired me, whether it's been on podcasts or YouTube or Instagram. And for me, it made me feel like, oh, hang on, I can be better. I can move through this. I can use these strategies. But then I also started working out that, okay, well, if they've done something, if they've shared something and I've inspired, well, I should be sharing my journey. I should be sharing and getting that out, because people, and you don't always know, like, as you know, with the podcast and your podcast, Lockie, you don't know who's listening. I went to a Broncos game the other night, and a lady came up and she said to me, she said, "Oh, Steve, I've known her for probably 10 or 15 years, but she used to work for us. But she came up and she said, "Oh, I love listening to your podcast." And I'm like, "You listen to my podcast?" And she goes, "Yeah, so does my husband." And it was like, you never know who's listening. And I've told a story before, but a gentleman that I've known probably for about 10 or 12 years, obviously I started, kind of feeling really fatigued, depression, anxiety, everything not quite right in 2018. And I started sharing stuff online. And it was only about 5 years later where the guy texted me and said, "Hey, Steve, I love your posts. I've been watching your content for 5 years. It's probably time that we catch up for a coffee." Like 5 years of reading my contact. I didn't know that he was, and he said, every time you wrote something or something you shared just resonated with me and actually allowed me to make decisions that allowed me to move on with my life. And some of the decisions, he's had to go through some pretty tough stuff. But where he is, I texted him the other day. I said, "How's things?" And he says, "I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not stressed. I spend more time with my family." And for me, the whole thing, just one person, right? Like, for me, my job's done. I've helped, one person, right? Obviously, we help a lot more people, but that is the whole thing, is if you can just impact one person, if you can just make a difference in their life, because there's a flow-on effect on that. Because then if they show up as a better father, a better husband, a better friend, a better colleague, a better human being, then that flows on to other people, and it's this kind of compounding effect, which, obviously we're all trying to, kind of improve the world and make it a better place. And together it's that ripple effect that really starts making waves.
I agree. And I love the focus on the one person. With social media, I believe a lot of people are getting overwhelmed and also trying to impact the whole world. We see how much tension there is with different groups believing their way is the only way, etc., and not understanding that tribes have always been a thing. There's been people with certain belief systems, etc., and that's okay. As long as we're not harming other people or destroying the world, I believe every tribe or every community has its place, should it be there for greater good. And when you look at it from that perspective, I know for myself, Steve, even with our academy, like, we're not trying to impact hundreds of thousands of people. I see a lot of people being like, "I want to impact 1 million lives." It's like, okay, well, how do you quantify that, for one? And so for me, I'm like, I just want to directly impact 50 people, because I can actually be part of that, like genuinely be a part of that and see a ripple effect. To meet the families, the children, all that sort of stuff. Like, that to me is me doing my job. But I remember when I first started, I was one of those people who was like, I'm going to impact 10 million straight up. And if I ask myself why, It's because my ego, that sounded cool. But looking back, I'm like, that's awesome goal for sure. But how much depth is there within that relationship? And I believe a lot of society is broken. The reason why we feel so bloody lonely, we're over medicated and extremely unhealthy, is because of the disconnect. You're not going to get connected with people trying to impact millions of people. You just can't have the depth to your relationships. As a byproduct, you may impact those many people. But if you were to focus on, for example, 3 to 5 awesome friends, like really good friends that everything that's going on in their life because you invest in that relationship, you're doing well. If you have up to roughly 50 associates, people that you chat with, it's not always deep conversation, maybe a bit surface level, you've got common interests, you're doing well there. But that's even hard to keep up with. Anything outside of that is, to me, it's just like, that's not possible to do well. And if you're putting that expectation on yourself, you'll end up neglecting the people that really need you and the people that you want to give time to most, which is your family, which is yourself. And I believe because people are spread so thin, they don't know who they are, they don't know what they want from their life, and they don't know where their place in society is. And that's what's leading to a lot of this hatred and confusion going on at the moment.
Yeah. Lockie, talk to me about vulnerability. It wasn't something, obviously, through your journey that came easily.
Definitely something to develop. I grew up idolizing my dad, he was a blue-collar worker, someone who worked hard, didn't share his emotions much, only really recently started hugging him. And I saw how he operated, and obviously over the years, even when I was playing footy, he's just like, I broke my nose once, and he's like, oh, when I was younger, I'd put a pencil up there and shift that back. And I was like, all right, if you did that, then I'm going to keep playing. And so there was so many things that I learned from that where I was like this suck it up mentality. And I remember in 2004 now, I had a friend take their life by suicide. And so I was 13, 14 at the time. And it was on the front page of the paper in Toowoomba. And no one spoke about it. Right? Like I had to keep a copy of that paper under the bed, and I'd cry about it in private because it was sad. But no one ever asked, are you okay? Or what was that experience like? It was just like, carry on and get on with it. And I ended up doing that with a lot of stuff. When relationships would break down, when I'd get pissed off, it was just like bottle it up, and I would find a way to, let it all out. So vulnerability, when people, even previous partners were like, what's really going on? I'd never explored that, so I didn't know. And the fact that you were asking me to understand it, I would get, agitated about it. I'd be almost aggressive because I didn't understand what that was like. Mm-hmm. And when you build up enough anger or emotion that you don't process, you find ways to unleash. And that was through alcohol, that was through drugs, that was through womanizing, because those were the moments where I either numbed myself or I allowed myself to truly feel something. And then the next day, straight back to poker face again. And when I recognized, and I guess that was through using social media, I realized how good I actually started feeling when I started talking about things. I got really interested in what vulnerability actually meant. And for me, it was really starting to understand and piece together what was going on in my mind, what I guess triggered me or caused me to feel and experience things. Was that a good thing? Was that a bad thing? Because I felt if I'm sad, that's a bad thing. Life's not good. But it's like day and night. Like you can't have one without the other. To truly experience life, you need to learn to be vulnerable. You need to learn to appreciate the highs and lows of the emotions. And when you can when I learned to become comfortable in that, my life changed completely. I haven't been angry. Sorry, that's a lie. I have been angry, but I haven't snapped or been aggressive for probably coming up 10 years, right? Which is mind blowing considering it was every couple of times a week. My wife and I never fight. I can understand why couples fight, but I still can't get my head around why they choose to, when I know that on the other side of doing this work and understanding how you feel and learning to put your thoughts into words can have such a profound impact on your life. And it's very it's confronting to do, but it is simple to do should you go, look, I'm putting my hand up and I want to get a grasp on what's going on emotionally for me. And vulnerability as well, I guess, just to finish off before we put a full stop on that. Vulnerability as well, once again, from what I've observed, is there is a time and place for it. I still believe as a man, you need to know when to be strong, to be assertive, and to lead, just as much as you need to know when to let the guard down and open up. I feel there's like a big pendulum, right? I feel I've watched, and once again, this is going down the rabbit hole of the internet, but sometimes you and I, Steve, probably grew up in that time where it's like men are hard, men don't cry, men don't talk about their feelings or emotions, to the other side where it's like the resilience level of a lot of people is not maybe where it needs to be to function well in society. And so how do we bring that back? And that's not having a go at anyone, because I don't believe I was broken. A lot of good came, I believe, Steve, and this is just me, Steve, came from learning to be tough, because I learned a lot about myself, and maybe I persevered with things that I wouldn't have had I been like, oh, that hurts me too much, or that's a bit challenging. So as much as it was something that I had to work with, it has made me so mentally resilient to do a lot of things that so many people haven't been capable to do before. But to that point of people who maybe lack resilience, that's okay. If you find yourself struggling to maybe make the growth that you want, have the tough conversations, etc., you can learn, you can develop that skill. But going back to what you said earlier, Steve, around the focusing on one person, it's also just focusing on that next brick you need to lay. Right? If I'm struggling with this, what is the next brick that I'm comfortable to lay that will help me get closer to having a more resilient mindset? It's why I believe in doing something challenging every day, as most people who, I guess, talk about resilience would say. But you gain so much feedback. And the cool thing about working towards controlled resilience is if it's too uncomfortable, you can stop. But the truth about life is you will face some adversity that you can't walk away from, and you're either going to step up to the plate and be able to handle that, or you're going to crumble. And I personally don't like the idea of crumbling under adversity, especially if it means my family's going to, be the consequence of that, or other things that are important to me. So that's why I flex that muscle, and that's why I believe, as much as it's important to learn to be vulnerable, for the exact same reasons, we got to find that balance.
Yeah. See, I've worked out, and as you know, a lot of the growth that we take doesn't start outside, it starts from within. So when we feel certain things, we're feeling those because it's internally, but we look to blame and make excuses and reasons externally, right? And once you start looking in the mirror and kind of going, I feel this, why do I feel this? When was the first time I felt that way? What's caused that? And then start unpacking that kind of storage cupboard that we've got stuck in the back of our head, which we kind of compress everything. Once we start dealing with that, chucking it out, sorting through it, and really starting working through that, we actually feel more confident. We feel less weight on our shoulders. And we can actually, for me, it was probably a year and a half to 2 years ago when I sat there and I went, I want to be me. I don't feel like I'm being me. And since then, I've worked on being me. It takes a lot of courage in that, because being you does make other people a little bit more uncomfortable, because they're like, well, hang on, you used to be like this, or you used to be like that. But for me, I was like, I've got to live who I am, and I want the people around me to live who they are, because you've got to live with that authenticity. Otherwise, you just can't live a fulfilled life.
Agreed. And you touched on a very important point. When you start changing, whether it is to be more authentically you, whatever you feel that looks like, you will change how you show up in other people's lives. And as we know, and we can probably understand our own experiences, people don't necessarily like change. And that includes if you're changing. You may have been the buddy who goes to the pub with your mates every Friday at 5 p.m. and neglected your family. And now you've sort of woken up to yourself, I would say, and realized, hey, man, Friday afternoons are for my family. I want to go home and help. So I'm going to start doing that. Therefore, you've created change. Now when your buddy picks up on the phone or shoots you a text at midday on Friday being like, beers, ? You're saying, no, I'm shooting home to the kids. They're going, what's going on with Steve? Steve's always been there for me. Now he's not doing that. I don't like that. I'm going to make him feel bad about it. And he'll probably shoot back a message being like, oh, going home to the daddy duties, are you? Or something, which isn't intentionally
or a
meant to do
picture
that.
at 5 o'clock with him with the guys at the pub with the beers saying,
Correct.
this is what you're missing out on.
Yeah, shame. How's the family? Like things like that make you feel almost bad or intended to make you feel bad because you're not there. But over time, that can change. So I'm glad you touched on that point because a lot of people, that's, the whole crab in the bucket idea where it's we want change, but every other crab in the bucket wants to hold on to you. But what happens if you can separate from that bucket? I guarantee you a few of the other crabs left in the bucket are going to go, I want to go where Steve's going. Like that's what I want to be doing. I just haven't had the balls to do it yet. And that's where leadership comes into play and influence.
And a lot of the time, the people that are shaming you, and they're not consciously know that they're doing it, but if they're shaming you or they're paying out on you or they're kind of uncomfortable because you're moving into a bit of a different realm, it actually says more about them because they are kind of pushing that onto you, but they're feeling inside themselves that they may not be showing up as the best father, husband, friend, colleague, and human being that they want to be.
Correct. And look, I still give my mates a bit of cheek every now and then and vice versa. And I think it's very important to be aware of the relationship because when I first started, I guess I had this personal development ego and I had no tolerance for banter, Steve, as well. And I want to touch on this just because I think it's really ingrained in the Australian culture. But when you've got a relationship of understanding with your mates and you actually know what's going on in their life, meaning more than just them and their career, like how's the family life going? How's your relationship with your children? What are you worried about? When you've got that level of relationship, it's so much easier to throw banter in there and know that the consequence is they're not dealing with anything where that could truly impact them in that moment. Whereas we all go when we know a mate might be going through a divorce or something bad's happened and we're a bit more careful with the words that we use or the shade that we throw at our mates. And it's important to be that switched on and in tuned the whole time. And for me, when I first started realizing that, I was like, man, I just don't have a great enough relationship with my mates. We're awesome surface level, but I don't know how that relationship's going with his wife or his children or what's going on with his health, etc. And when I started really investing in that, our level of friendship went through the roof. But now we have more banter. It's probably 85% talking crap, but that 15% is extremely meaningful. And I feel like a lot of relationships that I've experienced in the past have been so surface level that when I did throw shade or vice versa, I took it to heart because I didn't really have that level of trust or depth with the relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting attending a couple of men's retreats and you would have experienced this as well with your movement. There's so many things that are going on in obviously people's lives and, it's hard to break down and get people to start talking about it. And it's easy to kind of go, oh yeah, let's go for drinks, let's go for beers, because that's always the call to, isn't it? It's like, let's go to beers, right? Now, that attachment of alcohol with connection is something that, like, I haven't had a drink since last October. And
Well done.
I did my mental health first aid course, and I also, through starting the podcast, had a couple of conversations and a couple of interviews with people that kind of, there was a couple of mic drop moments in there, and I was like, yeah, I'm having the odd drink here or there. I don't believe I've ever been an alcoholic, but two drinks just to calm yourself, to numb how you're feeling at that point, and then 2 can be 4 in an evening, and you don't feel as good when you get up in the morning. You don't feel as good. But I think one of the key things is when you're dealing with friends, and when we went to these retreats, a lot of the guys were like, "Oh, my friendship circles, we could never have these conversations." And I actually challenged that in one of the sessions and said, "Have you ever tried? Like, have you ever put yourself out there? Have you ever shown your own vulnerability? Have you ever mentioned something about your own relationship or what's happening in your life or your anxiety or depression or anything like that?" Because I think, and I found this when I go to events now, if someone says, "Oh, who would like to share?" I try and share. Or, if I'm introducing myself, I'll say, "I've struggled with depression, anxiety, fatigue, da, 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 da." And people will come up to me later on and go, "Oh, that was so good that you shared that," because then I felt like I could share, and there's this stigma around men opening up and being vulnerable and sharing. And I just think it starts with just starting to have that conversation, on a very lower level. And some guys won't want to, but other guys will. You might be in a social setting where you come out with something, you pose a question, and a few of the guys just have a bit of a laugh and a bit of banter. But and I've had this as well, and I've spoken to a couple of guys that experience the same thing, that, you might have one of those guys in that social circle that texts you the next day or rings you and says, "Hey, can we just catch up for a coffee?" Or, "Hey, you said this. I'm actually going through something at the moment. Can I talk to you about it?" And it's like, yes, that's what you want. You can't help everyone, right? Everyone's they're in a different chapter of their journey. But if you can kind of be there for whoever or inspire someone in their chapter that wants to make a change or does need some help, that's who you're talking to at that time.
Man, I love that, Steve. I think extending the olive branch, one thing you did extremely well there at the beginning when you were saying, "I've experienced depression and fatigue, etc., is you're giving people reference points that they can potentially relate to. Mm. And one of the most important and underutilized skills in communication is doing that. When people say, "How are you?" or "G'day, I'm Lockie," that's it. It's a full stop. The conversation is very hard. Same with building rapport and connection. One of the most important things, whether you're in a men's setting or just meeting people for the first time anywhere, is extending the olive branch by giving a few more reference points that relate to you that potentially they can grab to build conversation and build rapport. For example, my name's Lockie. I'm an athlete. I just went for a 10K run this morning. I've got another 15K run tonight, and we're going to go run in the snow. And so for someone, for example, they might go, "Oh, you're in the snow. Whereabouts are you living?" Or, "You're running twice a day. What are you training for at the moment?" And so the conversation then goes in the direction of my interests. And people can do that in returning serve as well. It's like, "How are you?" "Oh, my day's good." "All right, full stop." Or, my day's been pretty average. I woke up, I burnt my toast, but I love my toast. And then I rolled into the office. I'm currently working in marketing, but this afternoon, I'm taking my family to the movies. So I now have just let you know I have a family. I work in marketing, and I love toast for breakfast. So you've now allowed the conversation to really open up and potentially have some some connection points for people to build rapport really quick. One of the things I did, and one of the best skills I ever learned, Steve, the best jobs I ever had was as an Uber driver, because it taught me to build rapport in under 5 minutes. Like, the average trip is quite short. And I was on a mission to grow my company and grow my podcast. And I was like, well, that's a good way to get paid to do it. And you get to talk to a lot of different people. So how can I build rapport with people really quickly in under 5 minutes? And that was it. It was like, okay, well, some people are really closed off and shy. So I have to lead the way. I have to influence the conversation. No different to how we do that with how do I, one of my skill sets that I am proud of is I can get any bloke to open up like really quickly. They'll be telling me everything. And they're always like, "I've never shared this before." I'm like, that's okay, but you're looking for an opportunity to do that. So let's continue. But I've done that by planting little bits of my own story of vulnerability that has then, as you've said, Steve, allowed them to feel comfortable doing the same, returning serve. And that's all relationships are. That's all communication is. And that's why when I bring it back to who are we trying to influence, or what's the impact that we're trying to have on the world, it's like, if you just focus on what's in front of you, those immediate communities, man, the life-changing conversations that you will have, the value that you feel and the sense of belonging will be overwhelming. Right? Too many people don't feel like they belong. They don't. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they're turning to fucking porn. They're living in their rooms, playing video games, etc. They're not going out to the gym or socializing because they just don't have a community. It's in my opinion, it's not healthy, but that's because we've lost the, innate ability to communicate effectively. And what you said at the beginning, why I went on this tangent, you did that so well, was how you extend the olive branch, right? By giving a little bit more of yourself in a conversation than the average person would.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's moving in our interactions with each other, whether it's males and females, whatever it is in life, we need to move from habit to intention. So rather than the habit of saying, "Oh, how are you?" Right? When most people actually are just saying that as habit, right?
Yep.
But actually saying, "How are you?" and actually really wanting to know how they are and knowing how you can be of service to them and how you can possibly help them or guide them or just be there to listen to them in that moment. But a lot of stuff we say is by habit. And, it's one of the things my brother and I talk about, the Are You OK Day, right? And it's why I became a mental health first aider and an instructor, because we're said, we're told to, "Oh, are you okay?" But most people don't know, or most people actually think the power is in the question. The power is not actually in the question. The power is in offering the space for someone to be vulnerable, to drop and actually have an opportunity to vent. My brother actually says it should be called I'm Not Okay Day, right? Because, are you okay? Most people will go, "Yeah, good, not bad," whatever it is, all the Australian slang. But we just scratch on the surface of this habit of doing stuff, and we don't look deeper, for deeper connection, for deeper conversations, and an opportunity to actually have deeper impact for someone in someone's life.
And to add to that, a lot of people aren't going to just open up to a complete stranger as well. Unless you've done, for example, what we spoke about a moment ago, if you want to have those conversations, you know how you can lead that conversation. But to most people, even where I was a number of years ago, if some random or even someone that maybe I spoke to occasionally said, "Are you okay?" I don't want to have that conversation with you. Like, I'm not even having it with the people that I do speak to a lot. Why would I have it with you? And that's where, for me, I've also thought about, okay, small community, build rapport, really invest in those relationships so that when shit gets hard, which it will, if it hasn't already, life is tough and it goes through seasons. You know that you can pick up the phone and call, whoever's on the end of the line for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Lachie, I wanted to talk. We've spoken about health and fitness a little bit. You've mentioned it a few times. It's a big thing for you. Talk to me about how big a part that plays in your life.
I love it. It's one of the most exciting things in my day. I have always loved health and fitness. I think I took it for granted probably in the early 2010s. But now, as I said, I think if I was playing sport now to the level that I was, I'd be a much better athlete because I do prioritize the impact of recovery and how it makes me feel both mentally and physically. I love what I learned through finding ways to challenge myself through setting, whether it's endurance challenges or just doing a hypertrophy session, or what I can learn through bringing people together to create community events. It really is this one element of my life that I can take so much away from and put into all the areas of my life that are important. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't do something to improve my health.
Yeah, awesome. Can you talk to me about some of your personal achievements or your most proud moments from an athlete perspective?
One of my most recent was so when I finished school, I finished as a state champion in 400, and the year before was 800. And because I was pursuing the rugby path, I sort of dusted my hands clean with that. But it was always something that I wish I'd taken further because I would have really liked to have seen where that went. And so 2021 or 2022, I got back on the track. And I'm like, I'm way too old for this. I'm not going to be able to run the paces. But I started training again. And it taught me so much. One, that age is just a number. But two, how fun it can be to relive the things that you did in your childhood. Like whenever I get out on the track, even to this week I've been on the track, it just takes me back to when I was that age, and I'm like, I feel so free. All the stress disappears. But I set a goal, and my goal was to break a certain time, and I knew what it was going to take to do that. And the unfortunate thing in Queensland athletics is not many people participate after school, like after the schooling ages. So my first race was against a bunch of 12, 13, 14-year-old blokes. So I've rolled up, Steve, with a full beard and like lose my hair, whereas these guys probably just starting to go through puberty. And I'm looking around pointing at my wife, and I'm like, if I lose, this is going to be quite embarrassing. Anyway, guess what happened, Steve? I bloody lost. And so it was the most humbling experience. So in one breath, I was so proud that I just, Lockie 10 years ago would have had too big an ego to have that experience again, right? So I'm so stoked that I put it all aside to do that. And on the other side, it's like, man, you're not as good as you once were, or maybe you actually have to really train for something now. And so it just reminded me that in order to achieve everything, nothing always goes to plan. You have to work hard. Every failing or failure is just feedback on where you can improve on. And you've got to enjoy the process. When you're getting paid to do something, like when I was getting paid to play rugby, it goes from being something that you love to do to something where you have an immense amount of pressure on you. And so to be able to do that and just like that, man, that was fun. And that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years, Steve. I originally broke a Guinness World Record for 30 marathons in 30 days on the rower, I think two years ago or so. I'm about to start another big one in 3 weeks. But then also the people that we get together on these athletic feats, like it's just, to me, it's like there's no limitation. I used to believe that once you were sort of 28, you had the dad bod, the beer belly, and you'd sort of given up on your athletic opportunities and fulfillment. And so many men and women are leading the way in 60s, 70s, 80s, still doing so many incredible things that I'm like, wow. Like I still got a whole lifetime to be able to challenge myself and pursue what I love. And I guess tying it back into being prepared for everything, the real reason why I want to stay fit is, once again, children, grandchildren. I want to be able to move and experience life, not just have a sort of full stop on it once you're 50 because your hips are cooked or you haven't looked after yourself and the energy and vitality has disappeared. So I think the way that I motivate and inspire myself is through the ventures and the athletic pursuits, but the long-term benefit is what I just mentioned.
Yeah. So talk to me about your daily habits and what I like to call them as your non-negotiables. What are the things that you do each and every day to make sure that you're having the best day that you can?
Train my mind, train my body, and reflect on the impact of the experiences that I'm having. So quickly elaborate. It's like I'm always reading or listening to a podcast, and then I'm writing notes about it and sort of starting to form my own insights and ideas around things. I think rather than just consuming other people's content, I want to put my own spin on it, how it's impacting my life, how it could help people that I know. Same with training the body. I have a set of standards that I never want to go under regardless of the training goal. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of aerobic endurance work, which means not as much time in the gym. However, I keep regularly testing my benchmarks, my baselines, because I don't want to go under them. If I am starting to go under them, which thankfully I'm not at the moment, I'll probably dedicate more time because I don't want to slip below those standards. And then reflecting on the impact of life, it's reviewing my diary. So I use a diary. Everyone's got some form of diary. So as you said, it's like being intentional with what goes in here. We all have the same amount of time. I reflect on the impact of the things that I'm doing. What fulfillment came from it? Did it move me closer to my goal, or did it, did it bring me energy? Did it drain my energy? Why not? And, spend a bit of time thinking about that, because I feel that the more I do that, the more fulfilling my life's going to be in the future, because I've really gained a better understanding on the impact of my own actions.
Yeah, perfect. Now, obviously for men listening to this conversation, and they're feeling a bit lost, they're not sure where they're going in life, talk to me about some questions they should be asking themselves right now, to just get them thinking a little bit different, shift their mindset and start moving in a different direction.
The first thing is making a decision. So I talk about self-discovery. I was going to say vision, but if we think about self-discovery, it's what I mentioned at the beginning. The discovery of oneself comes through embracing new experiences. Once again, you can do this in your social life, in your career. If you're trying to find purpose and meaning in your career, try different jobs, right? I understand that some people have more responsibilities and obligations than others, so that may be a little bit more tricky. However, that's why, once again, when you're young, you can make mistakes, try things, and then reflect on the impacts of those experiences. I've learned that I really love being active. Like, I don't enjoy the pub. My mates won't call me up and say, Lockie, let's go to the pub. My mates will call me up and be like, we're going surfing in the morning, or we're going to hike this, or we're going camping here, because they know that's what I love. I've learned that through years of going to the pub, years of, doing various travels and experiences. I'm like, I really find that fulfilling because of this. So the most simple place to start, gentlemen, is discovery of self. So just, if you've got a 12-month calendar, and once again, depending on your commitments and your obligations, you may have a lot of opportunity to explore new things, or you may not. And depending on where you sit on that, decide how many commitments you're going to make to try new experiences. You may do it with a group of buddies, you may not. But for example, every quarter, you might do one lads weekend, or one event that is completely new. You're not guaranteed to like it, and that is okay. But that experience will give you feedback that you can either pivot or learn from. Right? The more you do that, the more you're going to understand what you want to do more of. What that then enables you is to go to point 2, Steve, which is create a vision for your life. Now, I want to remind people that when you create a vision for your life, it's not set in stone. It can change, and you continue that whole process of, as you're working towards, and Steve, you said earlier, as you're working towards something, you may recognize, hey, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Cool, pivot, use that feedback, but you're moving towards what you feel a great life would look like for you. And I really encourage you to dream big on that. So when I think about a vision for my life, I know that money is going to be an important part to make a lot of other things that I want to have happen. But I also know that I'm not prepared to sacrifice the relationships, the health, in order to achieve that, which means my timeline is going to be a little bit longer to achieve the financial goal that I want. But I do believe, I have an idea of where I want to live, the amount of hours that I want to work, the kinds of people and the value that they bring, and the value that I can give within those relationships, the countries that I want to travel to, all of these sorts of things. It's like a number of questions you could ask yourself. What do I want to experience? What do I want to see? How do I want to feel? What do I want to learn? Right? ChatGPT can give you a whole heap if you get stuck there, but that will allow you to create a vision for yourself, right? And when you read it, it should be compelling. Like, it should go, you read that and you go, oh, wow, imagine. Like, if I really achieve that, that's going to be a great life. But if it's not compelling, I challenge you to go back and really beef it up, because here's what happens next. We obviously need to understand that from the vision, we can now break that down into what has to happen in order to achieve that. We're now creating goals, right? Goals are the things that we need to achieve in order to get an outcome. So if you know you want to earn $100,000 a year online so that you can travel all around the world and look after your family and not stress about money, what are your options? What does that look like in your situation? You may have to change career. You may have to get a side hustle. You may have to invest. There's plenty of options, but you start asking yourself questions and creating the goal. But what's the plan to support that goal? What are you going to do that? Okay, and here we go. And every goal then stacks onto the next one. You're not going to always hit every goal, but you've got the direction. Okay, I fell short on that goal. What did I learn from that experience? What can I do to get closer next time or become more efficient? Who can I bring into my team? What skills do I need to develop? These are all things that move you closer to the vision. So at times when you get deflated by the goal or the mundane work, because it does become mundane, it's boring doing the same thing over and over and over again to deliver an outcome, you look up and you go, this is why I'm doing it. This vision here of where my life could be in 10 years' time is so flippin' exciting that I'm going to get back on, into grinding and doing these boring tasks consistently on a daily basis. And for the person to wrap that up to your question, sorry for the long-winded answer, self-discovery. Firstly, just list out some experiences that you want to try. Okay, embrace those new experiences and reflect on the impact of them. What did you like? What didn't you like? Etc. Secondly, start creating a vision for your life. What would you like it to look like? Rewind maybe 3 minutes and you can jot down a few questions and make it compelling. Make it super compelling that if you were to share it with a buddy, they go, oh, that's awesome. And then finally, start creating goals off the back of that are going to move you closer to that. If you don't know where to start, use Google. There's plenty of courses, coaches, opportunities. We live in the information age. There is no reason why you can't achieve those things. That will give you purpose. That will give you direction. And once again, once you start moving towards that, you're going to build your confidence and self-esteem as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Lockie, let's talk about legacy. What's the legacy you want to leave?
It's funny, out of 12 podcast episodes I've been hosted on, I've never been asked that question. The legacy I want to leave is in through moments and experiences. I don't have an idea to leave behind generational wealth. I have the idea that I want to make people feel as good as they can possibly be when they're around me, to walk away going, that was like one of the best days of my life. I want to be able to treat the people that I care about most to experiences and travel and moments that they maybe wouldn't get on their own, and to know that every single day I'm showing up to be the best version and most fulfilled version of myself. And I feel if I can do that, the ripple effect of people in my life who watch me being as authentic as I know how to be, hopefully it inspires them to do the same, because, I've thought a lot about, inheritances and stuff. Wouldn't you rather spend that with your family than just give it to them once you're dead and create those moments? Because, one of the best things I did in the COVID time was start podcasting my grandfather before he passed away. And to be able to learn what he would have done differently, what he truly appreciated, none of it was about, he was a farmer, but none of it was about the money or the work. It was just like the moments with his family. And I never would have picked him to say that. And so if I've got people that I idolize that talk about how much money they make and all of that, it's like, I understand that's important, but it's important for a reason. And I want that legacy is when you're with Lockie, you're having a fucking awesome time, like a really life-changing time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can I ask, you touched on earlier on in our conversation around success and what success or what you thought success was when you were in your sporting days, when you were drinking, partying, girls, all those things, right?
Yeah.
Tell me, how has success changed and what's your definition of success now?
Success for me has changed in a big way. It used to be about the money, the fame, how people viewed me, the recognition. And I enjoy aspects of those. I don't think anyone wouldn't. For me now, it's more so not about the materialistic things, the things that can change or be taken away from you in an instant. It's gone back to what I value. And at this point in my life, I know that I'm living a successful life if health's been looked after and invested in, meaning my physical and mental health, it's my most important thing. And I can do that I can set any goal that could prioritize that. I know that I'm looking after health, make more money, all of those sorts of things. The second is connection. I've had people come and go in my life, and that happens. If you're not growing together, you're growing apart, and it's nothing against people or myself. It's just that's life. And so as long as I'm around people who challenge me, empower me, and support me, and there's genuine care and value there, they're the relationships that I want. The next one is freedom. And the meaning that I give freedom is freedom in finances, that I don't need to be stressed to pay bills and general things. And I was talking to our crew this morning. I chose financial independence, and I know what my number is in order to achieve that, where my investments and passive incomes pay for my lifestyle. And that there allows that certain level of freedom. The second part of that is the flexibility to live wherever I need or define my own work hours for the, reasons that I've touched on. If I want to be a stay-at-home dad, if I want to, over in the US at the moment, however I want to live my life or wherever I want to be and experience, that was important to me. It's the reason why I haven't I've turned down so many consulting gigs and stuff, because I have to be in a location. It doesn't align with that value. Okay. And then the final one is with my wife. It's just love and connection. Love. And if I can make sure I'm doing to the best of my ability in those areas from those areas, then that to me is success. And that can be changed regardless of what the goal is. For example, Steve, I could in 10 years be like, the Man That Can project isn't fulfilling me anymore. That doesn't define me. So walking away from that doesn't mean that I'm any less of a success anymore, because I'm now looking at health, I'm looking at connection, I'm looking at the love, and I'm looking at the freedom. That's what defines success for me.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. And I love how you built on that as well and really explained it, because that's just brilliant. Now, throughout your life, you've obviously had a lot of mentors, a lot of people that have kind of, provided sliding door moments for you. But who would you say has been your greatest teacher?
My wife. We started dating when I was at my worst, and for whatever reason, she stood by me. Even she saw something in me before I saw it in myself. So to know that we've ridden the journey to success for both together is quite incredible. And she loved me. I think when you find that person who loves you unconditionally, even when you don't love yourself, it's a pretty special thing. And when I was able to watch how caring she was, how kind, how she supported me, never judged, every idea that I ever came home with, she was like, awesome, I'll support you. That is, I would not be here, and I've said this countless times, I would have easily have had my arm twisted, and I would have been back doing the same dumb stuff that I was doing before I met Amy, had I not been surrounded by her and her influence. And I've taken away so many things that I try to put in my own life around generosity, caring for others, and being more tolerant, that I never used to have. So she's been my biggest teacher, which is awesome. That it's been so long now as well.
Yeah. On that, and talking about Amy and the family, I obviously see you guys on the stories and on social media and stuff like that. And we talk about environment, we talk about connection. You guys just seem like you have so much fun, and that you guys are there. You've kind of got this, and I suppose, for anyone listening, obviously Amy Shepherd and the Shepherd family and the band, but obviously you need that connection when you're traveling and when you're performing and everything like that. So they've built that, and it seems like a pretty special bond that you guys have all got.
Yeah, it is quite unique. We meet people all around the world, and that's one of the first things they say. That we've never seen. There's obviously we've got broader families, and we all get along really well. But the six of us, so myself and Amy, Emma and Liam, who are married, and then George and Kathleen, who are also married, we spend a lot of time together. We literally got apartments next to each other here in Nashville. And we're very lucky that we all have similar values. We care for each other. We're here doing this together, right? We're all trying to grow and better our lives. And it's so unique, even coming from the perspective, like the life that I've got a great family, but the closeness of the Shepherd family is like a whole nother level. And it's fucking awesome. In the beginning, I was like kind of weird, because I wasn't used to it. But now I'm like, my best friends are my family, and two of obviously my mum, my brother, and my sister. When and my brother's coming up here to Nashville in 2 weeks, so we all make everyone feel welcome, and that's, to be honest, one of the other really cool things that I learned back in 2014. So I was with Amy before, like Geronimo took off, for example, for those who know that song. And my first thought was, she's going to drop me. Like, they got signed with Justin Bieber and Scooter Braun, and I was like, I'm going back to Toowoomba here. And they didn't change one bit in regards to, they were never arrogant or expected anything. They've continued to be extremely humble. They care about their fans. They care about all people, which has been really cool to watch, because we've obviously met a lot of people throughout the years who are famous and whatnot, and they don't carry that. And so to be able to witness that and be part of that is quite cool. And it's made me also recognize that as my brand has grown and the podcast has grown, it's like you never forget where you came from. And that's very cliche to say, but it's also easy not to do, to give time to people and to make people feel valued.
Yeah, my wife said to me last night, we were out to dinner, and she said, "Oh, who are you interviewing in the morning?" I said, "Oh, Lachie Stuart." And she goes, "Oh, who's Lachie Stuart?" And I said, "Oh, he's married to Amy Shepherd, Shepherd the band." Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. What do they sing? And I went, "Oh, Geronimo." Anyway, we're popping into bed last night, and she goes, "I can't get that song out of my head."
That's awesome. It is catchy, right?
Yeah. And so is Amy's new single. That's awesome.
It's ripping. She's doing very well over here in the US, which is awesome. Really, really good.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Lachie, can I ask, if we fast forward and you can imagine sitting down with your 100-year-old self, what do you think he's saying?
Probably you did it. Is like all the things that you once thought weren't possible, you put yourself in a position to achieve, and you backed yourself. Like it, I probably don't acknowledge it enough myself, but to be in a position I'm in right now, where I literally run a decent sized business and I can do that from anywhere in the world, I put myself here from countless hours of cold calling, investing in events, and taking the risk when the safer option would have been staying in my trade job. Not that there's nothing wrong with that, but it just didn't light me up to be in this position. So I would definitely be saying you did it, man. Like, fucking well done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you do a bit of traveling. I want you to imagine you obviously next flight you're going to catch, and you can only take 2 books with you to read. What are they?
How to Win Friends and Influence People. I reread that book so much it's not funny, and I still am learning things. And I got to get this book up because it's blown my mind that I've forgotten the name of this, because I have listened to this book, no joke, 150 times. It's Jim Rohn, The Art of Exceptional Living. So I always read a book or listen to a book, and then I'll go back to that one in between. It's a really short listen, but it is so powerful. The principles that you can take away from that, like, it's always with me, always with me. I can't believe I forgot the name of that.
Oh, good. You won't next time.
No, I won't. Etched in my memory forever.
Yeah. Now, Lachie, people that want to connect with you, what's the best way to connect? Obviously, you've got the podcast, you've got Instagram, you've got a few different ways to connect to people. But just run through those things.
I'm most active on Instagram, so Lachlan Stuart, Stuart, and then just the website, themanthatcanproject.com. So you can find the podcast and everything like that over there. Just your one-stop shop.
Yeah, it's awesome. And obviously I recommend any men listening to this that want to kind of, are feeling a little bit lost to jump on and listen to some of those episodes. I think as we record this, I think you're at about 560, heading on to 600 episodes, which is amazing. I'm in the 30s here, right? So I'm in the infancy, but it's a big effort. And I think longevity from a podcast perspective is, a lot of people, I think only 1%, it's only 1% of the podcasts in the world go past 10 episodes, right? So,
crazy,
but to be approaching 600 episodes, that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and once again, I do it for that reason, that when I look back in 40 years, I'll have a catalogue of life experiences or moments in time that I can't quite recollect that I can reflect upon. And I think selfishly, that's one of the biggest drivers behind it, but also getting to learn from people like yourself and so many other incredible people out there. Thank you for listening to the Men That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Men That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.